Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a while since we've last done an Anarchy analysis, and, well, it's going to be a while before we see another after this. Because this is one that I wasn't expecting to do until, well, a couple of days ago after watching the first few games of the EU Masters. I thought, this is a really, really strong tourney, and considering last year I covered the UKLC, but nothing of the EU Masters, why not go a step further and cover the finals of the EU Masters, in which today we're going to be covering LDLC OL versus Kick Neosurf in the grand finals, best of 5. Winner takes home the best team in Europe title that aren't in the LEC, obviously. Who will win? We'll find out after these best of 5 series games. So let's get into our first draft. Now, one thing to note before we continue any further is the ban phase stays relatively the same throughout all 3 games, so we'll only cover the champions once and we'll just run through them after that. So we'll start off with Thresh by LDLC being banned out. Obviously, Ruxo is a big playmaking support player who does like these sorts of champions. It's one of his big main champions. Obviously, you have the hook to dredge line people in. You then have your flay to pull them in, and you also have a lantern as well to bring your team to you, and essentially have an escape tool to immobile carries who have to lock themselves in place, like Senna, like MF, and Aphelios with their abilities. And having that tool to essentially get them away, get them out of people's front lines, is very, very useful, and is a very, very nice tool. In response, we do see the Varus ban by Kick, and one thing to note is Hades realistically likes champions like Varus, like Aphelios, like MF, and Varus has been quite heavily used in the EU Masters. They use it as this poke threat that goes alongside the likes of a Zoe, the likes of a Bard, and Varus can either go lethality, which is that poke build, or you can go full attack speed, basically kill as quick as possible, sort of team fight-esque champion build. And he's very, very potent in this current EU Masters, and has actually won quite a lot of games. In response though, we do see the Ornn ban coming out from LDLC. Ornn is a champion that's been very, very powerful in a lot of metas, and considering this is a tank top lane meta we're currently in, where you realistically will see bruisers or tanks being played up there, Ornn has been kind of predominant with his ornaments as a tool with his passive also changing so that he can basically upgrade his tools as and when needed in lane, so he realistically only has to go back to base if he wants to regen his mana, regen his health, else he can just stay in lane and build an item for free. In response, we see the Graves ban. Graves has been another potent jungler that we didn't see in the LEC or LCS too much. He's realistically been taking more threat in the EU Masters here. He's been very, very strong, and as a champion, he obviously has a great roam game in terms of the fact that he can shuffle through. Yes, he is limited in the amount of auto attacks he can do, but his autos are technically a shotgun, so it blasts and hits multiple targets if done correctly. It also is very, very powerful at close range, but he also has a refresh with that shuffle, as I said, so his 2 auto attacks can become 4 in about 2 seconds. He also has a very nice execution ult that can obviously kill off an enemy player, and the E of his, the smoke screen, essentially stops a mobile carry from doing too much if you place it correctly. So it's kind of good that they're banning out him, because immobile carries essentially are becoming more of an option considering the Thresh ban already came through. In response though, the last ban from LDLC is going to be the Aphelios ban. Now Aphelios is one of the carries that I said isn't that very mobile, but he's probably the best, if not one of the best ADCs in the current meta. Yes, he is kind of a bit immobile, as I've stated, but he is very, very good depending on the situation based on his guns. Now, his red and blue guns obviously are very good for either healing or massive burst damage in a team fight. His grey gun is good for long range, his greenish gun is good for long range sniping and also killing off, and his white gun is very good at attack speed and also warding off enemies with that turret. And obviously he's very, very strong in terms of the fact that he has a lot of damage in that kit. And yes, it is very variable on what guns he has, even if I have skipped the purple gun, which we'll talk to now. He's a very, very good engage, I guess, tool for you in an ADC with that purple gun, because you can combine it with your blue gun and have the massive stun AoE, like a shotgun effect in a cone, or you can have the ultimate coming down doing a massive stun onto multiple targets. It's very, very useful, and as a champion can be very, very strong and hard to deal with. In response though, we see more poke being banned out by Kick Neosurf. In the Zoe, Zoe has been very potent yet again in the EU Masters. It's been used to such great effect by teams in the tournament, and if you go to C9 in the playoffs with that Zoe, you see Niski pilot the champion exceptionally well, and he does a lot of work, and as such, this champion, you see its true potential as a very, very hard threat to deal with them sleepy trouble bubbles. If they land, you're probably going to be hit by a paddle star coming from the portaling forward Zoe. You kind of cannot deal with it unless you pick up a Maokai, say, who can just twisted advance onto the Zoe and just soak up all the damage. But yeah, this is a very, very strong set of bans from both teams here, and it kind of leads you to know what's going to happen with the teams, as you know that Kick don't want to face poke, LDLC don't realistically want to play a team fighting game. They kind of have picked for more side lane oriented objective players bans, so removing them out the way kind of means that you're probably going to be aiming towards playing for objectives, which is kind of the LDLC style through the entirety of the CU Masters. So, first round of picks time, and immediately LDLC lock in a LeBlanc. Now, LeBlanc is one of these assassin mages in the mid lane who does a lot of burst damage with her kit, because she can use her ultimate to obviously use one of her abilities again, but with a lot more power. And yeah, he's very, very strong. Obviously, she has a leap forward, which is very, very useful for getting around in fights and being able to just get on the backline with ease. Very, very useful, and is very, very, very strong. In response, Kick lock in the Lee Sin, who is a very, very good, I guess, roaming jungler would be the best way to describe it. He has his kick, he has his sonic wave, which allows him to get into fights, kick the LeBlanc away if she gets a bit too close, and absolutely decimate a team fight if he's able to do what he needs to do to start and engage. Now, the next pickup for Kick is the MF, going into that bot side map. MF is a very, very good champion. I like saying very, very a lot, I've just realised that. But she's a good champion in terms of the fact that she can use her ultimate to zone away enemies with that bullet time, just cone effect, just isolating enemies, allowing you to pick off targets and do a lot of damage with her double ups and her E that allow you to drop down a nice slow that keeps targets in place for a long time, so you're able to pile up the damage and are not allowed to escape. Now, the response from LDLC is to lock in their jungler and their ADC. They go for the Trundle, which yes can be flexed to support, but Trundle is very, very strong in terms of the fact that he counters tanks with ease. He has a great kit in terms of the fact that you can tune in with on with that pillar, and also use the pillar to isolate members as well. You can also place it on top of where MF ult is, and whenever she's locked in place, you can just put the pillar there and she kind of gets cancelled out of that ultimate. Now, the next pickup is the Ezreal for LDLC, which is a great champion in terms of that he has his mystic shots that poke and harass throughout a fight, and he is very, very safe in terms of his ultimate and his E. He can cast his ultimate from a long range. It's a global ult that can hit from afar. His E allows him to essentially just dash around in fights. It's a blink ability. It's kind of a secondary flash that does a bit of damage if they're close enough to you, and he does a lot of damage on his 2-item power spike, which is a Trinity Force, and his Mer Mana. Now, the response from Kick is to lock in their mid laner as well. They go for the K1CK, a solid pick for the mid lane, as it is very, very good into a LeBlanc, because you can play quite safe using your phosphorus bombs and your ultimate rockets to just harass the minion wave down and get a pushing lane without having to get too close to that LeBlanc. And as a whole, it's very good in that turn of events. Jumping into our last ban phase of game 1, and Yuumi is taken off the board here by Kick to start this off. Obviously, it puts the LDLC support lane into a less useful term of events, because Yuumi Ezreal is a combo that works quite well. Yuumi just partners up with the Ezreal and is untargetable. You obviously have a lot of poke with your prowling projectiles that just go around, and then you allow yourself to push the targets into mystic shots from Ezreal. But obviously it's banned out here. You're not going to get to see the zoomies, and the Lost Chapter isn't going to be in effect. Now, the next ban here from LDLC is the Renekton ban, which is obviously a top lane target. We're going to be putting the top lane into a disadvantaged state. We're not going to be seeing some very, very high tier champions being played here. Renekton's removed, which is one of them big kind of bruisery champions that are quite hard to deal with, that can just heal up out of nowhere and burst you out. So it's a great ban, and it's one of them engage heavy champions with that slice and dice. You kind of partner well with Lee Sin, who wants to get in as well. But it's removed from the play, and another top laner getting removed here by Kick is the Maokai. Now, Maokai has a lot of engage potential with the Twisted Advance, with his ultimate, and the fact that he can Q you to push you back as well. A bit of knockback there, and he's very, very bulky. You're kind of going to struggle to take him out in fights past level 14, level 15, because he's just able to live and be an absolute nightmare in a fight. Now, the last ban here is actually a target ban by LDLC towards the top lane again. It's the Aatrox. We're going to be seeing quite a low tier, I guess you would say, top lane matchup here, as Aatrox is very, very strong. He's probably the second best top laner in current meta. You use your Qs, you can stack 3 times. The more you stack, the more damage they do, and you've obviously got that sweet spot on that ability. It's very, very powerful, and combined with your ultimate, which provides a lot of movement speed, a lot of healing, and it resets every kill you / takedown you get. It's very good, and it's very nice to obviously use, it's kind of hard to deal with. And finally, let's round out our draft here in style. We see the Braum pickup here to start things off, as it's kind of a takeaway from LDLC to stop them from getting it, because it's more than likely what they would have picked up in their support lane, as it's a massive counter to the MF and the K1CK, as well as slightly the Mordekaiser, as you kind of have the unbreakable will. You put the shield up, you stop the bullet time from reaching your team, and it's essentially a very, very strong ability that's hard to kind of break down. And with the built-in stun with the concussive blows and your poke from the Ezreal, it's very easy for them to hit them stuns from the Braum passive, and very, very nice to obviously take away on the kick side. Now, the response is obviously Set and Bard from LDLC. Set is the predominantly tier 1 top tier champion in that top side matchup. Set has such great engage tools with the Showtime ultimate, and considering Ornn's not on the field, he's going to be guaranteed to take someone back into the kick backline when he uses that ultimate. He then has the massive burst damage ability, which builds up on grit in the Haymaker, and is nice to use as the Haymaker just does a ton of true damage the more grit you have, and it's very easy to get grit. You just need to take damage, and it builds up the more damage you take. Obviously, you would then have your E that pushes targets in towards you, that stun them up, bringing them close to you, which is your kind of speciality, is to deal with close quarters combat, which is why Set is very, very potent in that top lane matchup and is kind of going to have push up the lane. The Bard is sort of a yellow star special in this current EU Masters. Great tools for engage, great ability to stop objectives, to catch enemies out, to give heals to your team. It's a very, very strong champion in terms of the fact that you can use your portal forward to get through to places that you're not expecting. You use it, you get behind enemies, you can then just collapse and kill. You can use your ultimate to as a stun onto turrets, onto objectives. You can stop a Baron take from kick by just placing your ultimate on top of it. They're not going to be able to kill it because it will go invulnerable. It's very strong, and it's very, very nice to obviously have on your team. The response is Mordekaiser though. Mordekaiser is a very strong champion who kind of works very well in the Cloud Drake Soul meta, as he's just able to pop his ultimate on you, and he's just able to run you down inside the ultimate. There's no escape from him, and once he gets to his item spikes, he's kind of hard to deal with, unless you're facing a Set who can just slam you down out of a fight. And it would have been a good counter to the kick team, but obviously with them going for the Set, it kind of shows you that there's more priority on Set over Mordekaiser, because Mordekaiser could just ult the MF out of a fight, or the Braum, allowing you an easy access into the backline, which I guess is what Kick are going to do to the Set or the Trundle. You just ult them out, and then you've got access to pretty much the entire back line of LDLC. But yeah, that is the draft over and done with. Let's jump into today's set of games, starting with Game 1. Now, Game 1, First Blood actually comes quite quickly with a very well executed dive underneath the Kick top lane turret, as Set has already pushed himself all the way up into the Mordekaiser, and just an immediate dive using the Haymaker as the E from Mordekaiser is used, and then the Trundle picks up First Blood with ease, as they do burn both their flashes while Kick don't burn any flashes, so there is that possibility of getting back into game from that. But a very well executed dive from LDLC secures them a plus in gold in that top side on the map. From this point, we start seeing LDLC controlling the dragon objectives, as the first Drake at 5 minutes is immediately killed off by LDLC, keeping to their nature of securing Drakes early and playing this objective game. However, the gold lead stays pretty much even from this point onwards, as Kick answer back with a Herald off to their own top pressure because the Mordekaiser is able to push the Set away, and they use also a lot of ability to obviously get to that herald quicker than what LDLC do. However, we do come in 10 minutes and 40 seconds and we see the game open up in LDLC's favour. As the Infernal Drake spawns, Kick are already in position to start taking and immediately chunk the dragon a little bit. But with the Bard and the Trundle around, an amazing Tempered Fate lands, isolating just on the dragon, stopping the Kick team from taking it, as the entire TU teams kind of roam down to the pit. Now an amazing Bard Q locks up the MF who's in her bullet time, and the Lee Sin, the perfect target to stop the smite coming onto the Infernal Drake. It gives over some 2 easy kills to the LDLC lineup here, as well as a free and easy Infernal Drake to take. And overall, this is the point in the game that kind of gives LDLC a bit of a breeze to walk forward and take over the rest of the game. But Kick were not out of this game, as this play showcases it. After thwarting LDLC's Baron attempt, we see LDLC actually catch out the MF with the Tempered Fate. Now Braum immediately engages to protect his ADC, while the bullet time rains down onto the set, and essentially what happens is Braum kills the Trundle, and Mordekaiser gets the set here, giving LDLC 2 quick and easy kills, and without the LeBlanc trying to engage to try and pick up another kill, bursting out nearly the Lee Sin, almost killing him. But with her getting caught out and no distortion locations left, it gives over to Kick 3 quick kills and an easy Ocean Drake, denying the Ocean soul from LDLC, who needed that Drake to get that massive buff. However, the fight back from Kick in this game kind of was taken away, as yet again they were in the lead. They were dominating LDLC at this point in the game. They were posturing mid to try and get that first tier turret, and Ocean Drake spawned again, and this was obviously soul point still for LDLC, while Kick needed another 3 in order to get the actual buff. But an amazing flash over the wall from the Trundle secures the buff for LDLC, with an amazing Tempered Fate locking off members of Kick to kind of execute the Baron. And again, this Bard is playing phenomenally around objectives, and you see it being used so effectively to get LDLC so much back into this game that they should realistically be winning from this point on. From there, it's rinse and repeat around the Baron this time, but LDLC have full control this time of the pit. They eliminate all the vision of Kick in the area, kind of notifying Kick that LDLC are doing Baron, but LDLC do burn this down quite quickly, and yet again, it's the Bard show, using the portal to allow Set to get through, and an amazing Tempered Fate locking up the Lee Sin before he can get anywhere near the pit, kind of means that the Baron is going to be killed by LDLC pretty much for free, even if it is LeBlanc getting the kill on it. But there's a massive trade here for Kick, who managed to pick up 2 kills for free. Granted, 2 kills is worth it for LDLC, as it's still Baron on 3 members, and they're able to use it to start their winning push. But what we end up seeing though is this turning into something even better, as we do see LDLC eventually transition down 2 minutes later to the Elder Pit, and this is where things start getting very, very interesting. Now with Elder secured, after a Baron play, we do see LDLC start to turn the game down and wind it out with this last fight, we see the showstopper coming in from set to pretty much start it off with LeBlanc bursting out the MF, then Ezreal hitting so many mystic shots onto Lee Sin. We then see LeBlanc picking up a final kill with that burst damage executing the Elder buff passive. We see LDLC essentially just wipe the floor with Kick here, and with the last few members remaining for Kick on the field, there's not much they can do in order to stop this LDLC monster coming through to pick up the final kill onto the Braum, and then the Nexus turrets to follow through, winning the first game for LDLC in a pretty impressive fashion, to say the least. It's very good to see as we move into game 2. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Bizarro World. Game numero 2, or game number 2 if you're not French, is actually the insane game here for you guys. And this ban phase is kicked off with the same 6 bans from either side, as we see Thresh, Ornn and Aphelios banned out by LDLC, which is the exact same as game number 1, and Kick banning out Graves, Varus and Zoe. Now, I've described all these champions before, but one thing to note is it's probably known here that these two teams kind of want to play the same style as what they did in game number 1. As LDLC, it worked perfectly for them, so keeping the same things is good. If I was Kick, I would have probably banned out from the first game, say, the Ezreal here, who was absolutely dominant in that poke matchup. Maybe even the Bard or the Trundle, but no, these 3 bans stay the same as game 1, and I only can assume Kick might have just mis-executed on their draft, well, what they drafted first game, so they might just keep the same lineup. So let's move into our first round of picks. We start off with the LeBlanc, yet again the first lock-in for LDLC. Again, it's a very, very strong champion. They're obviously prioritizing this series, and you could technically argue for it to be a ban by Kick instead of the Graves or the Zoe. In response though, we do see an earlier pick of the Corki than what it was originally. It was actually the last pick of the first phase for Kick, and here's the trade that's a big difference. The first major change in the draft is by Kick. They actually are the ones to pick the Trundle this game, instead of giving it over to LDLC to pick in this rotation of the banned pick phase, sorry. But Trundle is, yet again, he's kind of only good if there's tanks, and well, the way LDLC are drafting, they lock in the Lee Sin, which is obvious. It's going to be a Lee Sin versus Trundle matchup through the entirety of the series. And the last pickup is for Hades. It's going to be his Ezreal yet again. Their mystic shots are going to be poking like mad and being an absolute monster, and combined with his Lee Sin this time instead of a Trundle, the Kick is going to bring the targets into them empowered Qs and allows a lot of poke. And the last pickup here is the MF again. So we see pretty much the same draft, bar the junglers have switched around here slightly. And it's not until now in our second ban phase that we see a little bit of a change, as the Yuumi yet again gets banned out by Kick here. Obviously a great poke champion that can do a lot of work with that Ezreal, so keeping it off of the Ezreal is still a big threat to them and good to do. Here, LDLC remain with the same ban. It's Renekton. He's being removed off the board. It kind of means that Kick aren't going to be getting that very, very strong champion in that topside map that can do a lot of damage and can just turn around any 1v1 in about 10 seconds. But here's a change, which I don't like. Kick ban out Karma, and you've got to argue that surely if you're banning out supports, you ban out the Bard that was super duper useful in that first game, but instead they ban out the Karma, who isn't too much of a big pick in the current meta, but you know, you see it picked from time and again. It's not very often, but yeah, I'd much rather have preferred the Bard ban there. But LDLC, instead of banning the Aatrox like they did in the last game, they ban out the Maokai. So they're removing a tank off the board, and yeah, It's an immediate lock-in for Kick of the Aatrox, who was banned out in the first game. Aatrox, obviously, them sweet spot Qs are very, very potent, very, very hard to obviously avoid if you play him correctly, obviously. And what do you know? The response from LDLC is the Bard. You kind of expected it. If you're removing Karma off the board, not Bard, you kind of realise that Bard's just too good for LDLC in this game. Now, the last pickup here for LDLC is actually going to be the Gangplank. Obviously, a good sort of champion into the Aatrox, as you're kind of forcing skill checks with them barrels to see if he's able to deal with them. Obviously, you have your own Lemon, who can just kind of cleanse you out of the sweet spot Qs of the Aatrox, as well as the inferior chains. And yeah, you kind of have a good sort of champion into the Aatrox, who obviously has that global that can be used in fights across the map, where he doesn't have to teleport in, where Aatrox would have to. But yeah, it's a good sort of pickup for LDLC. And the last champion that we've yet to talk about here is the Nautilus. Nautilus is a change up from game 1 instead of the Braum pick. It's a champion that honestly does do quite well. He has his own hook that can be pulling targets into the bullet time. Obviously you can use your dredge line and depth charge combo to essentially keep them in place, and then you have your passive to stun them up after that. You've got a lot of CC. You're very hard to deal with, and obviously you want a lot of CC if you're playing League, and with an MF you want to be locking up targets long enough that MF can just unleash a full barrage at the bullet time. But yeah, that is the draft, so let's get into our team fight that we're breaking down, and oh boy, this is an insane one. We joined to play Kick with Ocean Soul and a massive 4k gold lead, and they're on the verge of winning game number 2. However, their actual Baron vision is only limited to just a Scuttle Crab, which, if there was only one way to avoid that vision, surely it would be in this game, right? What champions can just go through walls and avoid a Scuttle Crab? Maybe. No, not Traveler's Call. Cosmic Binding, no, that's just a stun. That's a lot of heals. That just makes everyone invuln. Magical Journey can open portals in nearby terrain. Allies and enemies alike can just take one trip through that terrain and move into the portal? Maybe that'll allow you to avoid a Scuttle Crab. Yeah, LDLC sneak away Baron. That's all I can say about this. LDLC sneak into the pit uncontested. Bard clears a few more wards to make it seem like LDLC are either resetting or nowhere near the Baron pit. And yeah, this just happens without any contest from Kick, and once Ezreal walks over the Rift Herald, Scuttle Crab, Kick know that Baron's been taken, and from there, Aatrox decides he wants to go in and try and fight these 3 members of LDLC.
Oh, yay! I want to go here! Oh no, there's 4 of them! Bleh.
That's basically what happens to Aatrox here, as he's just instantly deleted, and well, someone else wants to join in the exact same fate as Aatrox. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we have blast off. Whee! Bleh. Yeah, Cookie dies. And now it's time for the other 2 members of LDLC to turn up, one teleporting in and one being a Bard who can just run all the way in, and well, one Magical Journey spells the end of 2 of the last remaining members of Kick, who the Ezreal and Nautilus share absolutely destroyed, giving over a 4-0 and Baron to LDLC in this game, granting them an easy walk up through the mid lane, taking Elder and giving them game number 2 in a game they realistically should not have won. After one bizarre game, we join the last game, possibly of this series for Kick. They're on do or die match point. LDLC ban out here the Thresh, which is a continuation of game 1, so is Eorn. Graves and Varus again banned by Kick, keeping the same 4 bans to start this round off, and the first change up here is the Corki being banned out by LDLC. Obviously, Corki is not an Aphelios, which has been banned the past 2 series, and well, is very, very strong. Obviously has a lot of effectiveness. The Corki obviously use their missiles, and the package obviously was doing something in game number 2 that really didn't sit with LDLC, so they removed it. They removed the obvious big carry threat that Kick were using in game 2, which they could have won, and well, the response from Kick is to remove the other ADC on the board, which is the Ezreal. Again, obviously that very good poke heavy champion in the Ezreal getting removed now sort of tells you that they don't want Hades playing safe. They want him on something a bit more adventurous, like an MF, even an Aphelios, something that doesn't have movement in his kit, and as such it's a nice little change up in this ban phase. Now we move into our pick phase here, and what we see is Zoe immediately locked in instead of the LeBlanc, as Zoe is more poke than what Ezreal is, as her kit is built to harass and be an absolute lane bully, using them Sleepy Trouble Bubbles to great use, using the Paddle Star as well to just harass and cause you so much scrutinizing pain that you're gonna have to have a hard time to deal with it. However, Kick obviously lock in the Aphelios, one of their very, very strong ADC picks. Obviously a great champion overall. Obviously you do have the situational guns that do a lot of work if you get them in the right situation, and what goes well with an Aphelios is a Lee Sin. Lee Sin this time being picked up by Kick, and what we expect here is obviously the Trundle to be locked in by LDLC in response to the Lee Sin, which is a repeat of every game that's just switched sides. However, what we end up seeing is a Rek'Sai, which is basically tit for tat with how she works in terms of her kit, and it's very similar to how Lee Sin works. Obviously you're looking to hit your Qs as Lee Sin, whereas Rek'Sai is looking to burrow underneath you and absolutely dominate you that way. And what works well with a champion that has a knock-up in their kit and a lot of stuns with the Zoe, it's MF. Bullet time can rain down and absolutely destroy the opposition here. LDLC have drafted quite nicely, and what's more is Kick are left with the LeBlanc, something that was being used so effectively by LDLC in terms of the fact that they were using it to burst out Kick in teamfights, allowing a lot of hard times for Kick in this game. And usually it was combined with a Bard, so the teleporting forward with the magical portal, going through on a journey, now due to distort forward as LeBlanc from further distances, and it was very, very hard for Kick to deal with. So if they've got it on their side, I feel that LDLC might struggle with 2 immobile champions in the Zoe and the MF once they lock up in their ultimates. Ban time now, and Kick have finally adapted. They've removed the Bard from the field. Finally, that very, very nuisance of a champion has been demolished from the picks and is now being put on the bench. It's just been such a nuisance in the first 2 games. Was surprised it actually made it into the second game overall, but it's removed, and so is the Aatrox that was obviously giving a very strong top lane start of the game for Kick in the last SIT game, which overall was very, very dominant until he started inting and giving over 3 kills in the game over to LDLC. And the other ban from Kick is obviously Yuumi. Yet again, even if Ezreal is off the board, there's priority towards banning the Yuumi, as it kind of puts Yellow Star onto something a bit more playmakery, something more tanky, something not a support mage basically. And Aatrox was the first ban, so is Mordekaiser. from LDLC. He's removed as it's one of the other champions that we've seen being played in that top lane. It's a change up from Maokai that was banned in the last game and the game before, I do believe, and it kind of allows Maokai into the game to be able to be played. So what other than the Maokai itself to be the first pick of this last pick phase and the possibly last one of the entire series? And yeah, Maokai's locked in. Obviously, we said before, it has such great CC tools, able to lock you up and be an absolute nuisance in a fight. And what goes well against a Maokai is another tanky top laner that can just absolutely dominate lane and be a nuisance in team fights and very hard to kill. Then Cho'Gath. I mean, it's a perfect response from LDLC. Champion just builds a lot of health and can do a lot of damage to objectives. And speaking of objectives, what sort of team are LDLC? Oh yeah, a team that love objectives and will absolutely dominate a game by taking as many as possible and starting off strong with a Cho'Gath who can just nom 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 on an objective. Getting bigger is sort of a thing you don't want to allow onto the LDLC side. And what's more is giving him a Braum frontline partner, making it really annoying if you're kicked for not picking Trundle and instead going Lee Sin, because you're kind of now giving 2 free tanks over to LDLC that they refused to play in game 2 because they saw the Trundle was on the kick side. So yeah, that is amazing that when you don't pick Trundle, they go tanky. So that is a nice little change up from LDLC that is quite noticeable, because they've been locking their last 2 tanks in the last phase of the pick ban phase. And what's even better and funnier for Kick is they lock in a Morg, which is a control mage, which is ironic because tank duty on the bot side map has been played by the Kick support through the entirety of the past 2 series, and it's only fitting that he plays one of these support mages for a game instead of having Yellowstar on a Braum, which was support duty for Kick the first 2 games. But yeah, this series is at its penultimate match, or possibly penultimate match, who knows. Let's see if we get a 4th game, or it's done here for LDLC. So, this is a long one. Game 3 is very, very slow, as literally, I'll be honest with you, my notes start at 6 minutes 30, and that's only a Mountain Drake take, which you're seeing on screen right now, for Kick. And yeah, you see, First Blood really does come quite late into this game, and one thing that I've got written here is the actual game. My last thing that I've written down is 38 minutes in, which we'll get to in a minute or 2, maybe 3. But we see Kick take this first Drake for free, pretty much, and it wasn't through LDLC not trying to set up plays and fights across the map, but when your jungler level 1 loses flash, it's kind of hard to obviously do that, and with no real lanes to pressure, because bot lane is a very strong push lane with the Morg for Kick, and top lane you're not killing a Maokai, and mid it's just LeBlanc dashing in and out of Zoe Qs and E's. Yeah, you essentially see that it's very easy for Kick to play quite safe and very effectively, and we don't see First Blood until 11 minutes, as I said, and that comes like this. It's basically a greedy back on a ward. With your flash already burnt from your last play down towards bot side, you're essentially dead to an Affilio assault and then the Morg Q. Then you're just stuck in place for so long that the Aphelios is just able to just fire in so much damage and kill you off. Granted, LDLC do make a proactive play and take the Herald for themselves. It's still not good, to say the least, as what we end up seeing is a bit more trading across the map, as we're going to keep talking here, as we do end up seeing Kick roaming down bot because of their bot lane pressure, because they've just secured First Blood. They immediately go and take Infernal Drake, which is kind of the smart thing. Realistically, you trade Herald for Infernal Drake, giving you a 2 dragon lead, and they're able to get this not without issues from the Zoe poke coming in, and then the Rek'Sai being able to just burrow through in order to try and steal, and then a nice bullet time comes through, and when you're a LeBlanc stood on the other side, it's very easy for an escaping Rek'Sai who's you're standing on their tunnel to just unburrow underneath you and essentially kill you, giving basically an equalization into the gold. Again, LDLC claw themselves back into the game, and we don't see too much until around the 23rd minute, where we're going to discuss something that I've written literally next to my notes. Lotso kills, and I don't know what happened here because it was that bizarre, so we're going to break it down for you guys. Okay, so we see LDLC slightly stepping way too far forward, the Zoe and the Braum, and immediately gets jumped on by the Morg and the Aphelios from Kick, and then it's just a chase down. The Cho'Gath is already in the fight. He comes in, cleans up the Maokai. He then cleans up the LeBlanc, who's decided just to distort over the wall, give away her position. Why not? Give over an easy kill to a Cho'Gath. And yeah, that is already 3 kills in this fight, 2-1 in favour of LDLC. Then it's Kick trying to think, oh, we can secure the Ocean Drake here, because LDLC will have reset. Nope, Cho sat in a bush waiting, a ward gets put down on him, and here's a re-engage from LDLC. Rek'Sai comes in, cleans up the Morg, giving it a 3-2 in favour of LDLC. Then it's Lee Sin versus Cho'Gath, who blast cones over the wall to try and execute him, and he does. And now it's just Aphelios trying to clean up and get as many kills as possible. He gets back one, making this a 4-for-2 trade overall, which is very favourable if you're LDLC. And yeah, they take here the Ocean Drake, and you feel it's done here. Well, oh no. Ocean Drake goes over to LDLC. Cho'Gath's already TP'd back in. Bye-bye, Aphelios, you get killed off by the Zoe poke, and while that's happening, Maokai comes in, he cleans up the MF who's stuck in place in the ult. We've already seen 2 ults in this fight already, 2 bullet times, being very effective. Cho'Gath's frontlining here, just being a nuisance, and he is unkillable at this stage of the game. He's so big and tanky, you're going to struggle to actually beat him here, and it's very, very strong and hard to do. He's got so much tank stats, also the Gargoyle Stoneplate, and he just walks away. Just like that, and it is a very, very insane teamfight to break down. Obviously, you can't ask for much more here, as this play just spiraled out of so much control. So now it's time to welcome you to Kick going over aggressive, Morg oversteps here, into a Cho'Gath, who immediately ults him. Yes, she does get a stopwatch off, but Cho is unkillable at this point, and you try and kill him, he's just gonna feast on you. And Lee Sin feels Dai's wrath as Cho just eats him up alive and dead. Then it's a Rek'Sai immediately getting an amazing unburrow on the Aphelios. He's dead now. Not without Cho'Gath dying, but LeBlanc also dies. So it's already a 3-for-1 trade here for LDLC. Now with Maokai and Morg the only members left for Kick, it's kind of easy for LDLC with the MF to run them down. Yes, Maokai is going to be very Maokai is going to be very tanky, and Morg can kind of protect him a bit more, but they're still lacking the damage to kill anything, and essentially with 4 members alive here for LDLC, they're able to wipe the floor with Kick, a 5-for-1 trade here, an ace and a Baron over to this LDLC team looking to win the EU Masters on this game. And yeah, this play kind of secures a lot of goal for LDLC here, and what we end up seeing is this play to end out the game. With Kick's base in tatters, LDLC turn to the respawn Baron to try and basically execute the game. Lee Sin is hovering around trying to contest here. He's got to be the do or die attempt here for Kick in order to get back into this game that's so far gone. Baron is just being melted by LDLC. Morg is trying to land in her oil, her Q's. She's trying to be a nuisance, but the Zoe's already roamed around and already hit her Q onto the Lee Sin. He's pretty much dead. He dies before he even gets in the pit. Baron is secured by MF, and this is the engage from LDLC coming through here. Just absolutely demolishing all of the Kick members. Maokai is just not bulky enough to do anything, and it's a simple ace for LDLC here. 5 kills, no deaths. They immediately teleport onto the super minions on the Nexus turret already, and this is where the game ends. LDLC win the European Masters 3-0 in such a massive win for the organisation, and I congratulate them entirely for doing so, and this was an amazing series overall. So, ladies and gentlemen, we actually got the lowest amount of games possible for this EU Masters final, but this is probably my favourite finals that I've seen this season, as it was so, insane. We should have got more than 3 games realistically, because Kick should have won the game 2, but it's kind of maybe nerves, maybe a bit of the pressure got to them in that second game to close it out, because they were unable to do so. They lost to a Baron sneak essentially, and then some overcommitment. But it was phenomenal to watch these two teams go to war. Game 1 was deserved by LDLC. Game 2 was deserved for Kick. Game 3 was quite clearly a LDLC game, and possibly Game 4 could have been for Kick and we could have got all 5. But Game 1 and 2, you kind of have to realise that it was the support game from LDLC. Bard around objectives was so insane. He controlled the game without having to do the flashy plays, the engages. It was instead him controlling how the team executed, how a fight was executed. It was very, very good to see such top tier plays from a guy who's been in the scene for over 10 years, who took a break and was a coach for the LDLC roster last year. And yeah, this was amazing to watch, honestly. The team that's been so close but yet so far for the past few seasons and splits in the EU Masters just actually win it and do it in style. 3-0 is great. As for Game 3, it was honestly just down to probably the nerves and the actual execution by LDLC, turning around the early game losses that they were suffering from Kick, making it an even game, and then from there just wiping the floor with them at 23 minutes in the last game. Then at 29 getting the fight ace and then the Baron, and then from there you're unstoppable. Once you get that Baron in this level, it's very easy for you to push out and then win. Yes, it did take him 2 Barons technically to do so, but you have to realise you're on championship point. You take these safety precautions considerably more than what you do in Game 2, where if you drop Game 2, that's okay, it's only 1-1. Game 2 just means you go to match point. It doesn't matter too much, and LDLC were able to make them cocky plays in Game 2 overall, which actually won them the series overall. Game 2 was a game that they shouldn't have won, and they did, and it was done well. It was executed well by LDLC in the latter part of the game. And yeah, this series was truly deserved for the French side, and the LFL getting a championship on their kind of the region is good, and I'm actually amazed that it was by LDLC, who were technically the second seed in the LFL, I do believe, into EU Masters, but who cares? It was a great showing by this squad. And yeah, that's going to be it for this series breakdown and for the spring split. It's finally over. You've got a bit of a taste of what I'm going to bring into summer with the style of these videos. because I'm changing up, making a spring, obviously, set of like designs and everything you've seen. Summer's a bit different. I've already sorted it out, don't you worry, kiddos. And yeah, this is going to be it. My name is izlogic. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like down below, subscribe and you're around here if you want to, and I will see you guys for my summer split predictions for the LDC and LCS. And today, one major signing was brought into the Misfits team. If you don't know who, you will in about a week or so when I release my predictions. But that's going to be it. Peace out.